Hello and welcome to the next lesson, the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, and today we're going to talk about teacher pay with my guest, Kayse Morris. She is the teaching entrepreneur, the teacherpreneur who helps educators become thriving CEO teachers. And I can't think of a better person to have on than Kayse to talk about teacher pay and the options that educators have so that we can all make a good living and doing the things that we are skilled at and good at. So Kayse, thank you so much for coming on this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. That was a wonderful intro, Will. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, you're like an old pro at doing this. You're so much more polished than I am. I'm still like rattling my way through on the mic sometimes. So thank you.
Well, listen, we all start somewhere, right? And it's just one of those things. You get better with time. But I think you sounded great. You sounded very professional.
Thank you. So getting into teacher pay, can you tell my audience a little bit about you? Because, yeah, I guess you are a teacher, and it's like and block X, comma, Y, comma, Z, and you're great on the mic. And, you know, like if you end up watching this on YouTube, my studio is all dark and dingy. Yours is like well lit and looks professional. I mean, you really got this down, and you're a teacher. What's a little bit of your background, your story, and how you went from the classroom to, you know, kind of what you're doing now?
Sure. So I was a mom to two young boys, graduated from college with a 1-year-old and a barely newborn baby, and struggled to find a job for a long time because it was during the recession, and finally found a job teaching. And it was middle school, which was not what my degree was in. It was in early childhood education, but middle school I found was the love of my life. I love sassy students, and that's what middle school gave me, was an out to be sassy back and to develop these relationships like I never thought possible. And I fell in love with teaching, but quickly realized that the fire I had inside of me was fading fast, and I didn't know why. I thought it was my job, but unfortunately it wasn't that. It was postpartum depression. And I struggled through postpartum depression for about 3 or 4 years. And in that time, I thought that everything in the world was black and white, right? That there was nothing left of color for me. I was a mom to an amazing husband, beautiful kids, and yet I was not happy. I was not fulfilled. I had the job I always wanted, but something was wrong. And in 2013, I had been teaching for a few years, and I knew I needed help. And I decided to ask my doctor for help with postpartum depression. And that week, I also stumbled upon a website to help me become a better teacher called Teachers Pay Teachers. Mm-hmm. And that website, a lot of teachers are familiar with. It's an online marketplace that helps teachers sell their lesson plans or resources or interactive notebook foldables and make a little bit extra cash. And the reason I found it was because I was complacent. I didn't want to teach anymore. I wanted someone to teach for me. But little did I know is that those teachers saved me, and that, being able to buy those resources saved me in the classroom, and it saved the students that I was teaching, because I fell in love with teaching again. I came out of that darkness and to the most vibrant days of my life when I started a few months later deciding to sell the resources for myself. And the rest, they say, is history. So I've recently left the classroom, and I get to teach teachers how to build an online business of their dreams too. Regardless of if they want to leave the classroom or not, they can still be teachers and build a business, because I did that for 4 years. But I have been living my best life since those dark days of 2013.
Oh, well, it's so nice to hear. Yeah, postpartum depression is a real thing. It's a real thing. And a lot of women suffer from it. And it's unfortunate how little attention it gets. It's almost like one of those things that you don't know until unless you've been through it or someone you love has been through it. So to find your way out of that is really awesome and important. So Teachers Pay Teachers, I think a lot of educators are aware of that site. Is what you do, when you say you sold them yourself, did you create a new marketplace other than Teachers Pay Teachers, or using their market?
So I started my business using Teachers Pay Teachers in 2013. And then I grew that business, up, and I was making 6 figures a year. I was so excited. I was still teaching. We were living our best life, as I said earlier. And when I left the classroom, I was still selling my resources there, but I was waking up in the middle of the night worried, because I had all of my eggs in that basket, which was
Mm-hmm.
just selling my teaching resources on Teachers Pay Teachers, which has been an amazing way to live my life. But I decided that I needed to build a business that belonged to me. So I didn't actually start my business until November 1 year ago, 2018, where I decided to launch a course and a membership and have a business that was dependent on me. So my business looks a lot different now than it did even a year ago.
Yeah.
But that's when I started my podcast, and it's crazy how things can change so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's awesome. So, for regular listeners to this or people who know me from social media or anything, know that my wife is an entrepreneur and in the beauty industry. And I think the part of the reason why I got into podcasting and social media is because of her influence. And I guess I just never thought that teaching would go along with that world. Like, I don't know what it is. Teachers are like, we're classroom teachers. That's what we do. That's what we're good at. I've honed this skill. Anything outside of that is out of my wheelhouse. It just feels a little off or uncomfortable. There are, teachers out there that are working with in business and stuff. I've talked to Courtney Jones, who does Support a Teacher. But there's not a lot there's not a whole lot of people like you, Kayse. Like, why do you think it is that teaching is a pretty old profession. Business is a pretty old, area to go into. Why do you think that there hasn't been a whole lot of people doing what you're doing? Like, you're doing something really awesome, and there's not a whole lot of other people doing it. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question, Will. And I don't know that I know the answer. I know that there's a train coming by right now. So if you guys hear, my office is right by a train track. Will and I discussed this, but it's louder than it usually is. So prepare yourself. So I think that we have labeled ourselves. In history, we have decided our profession. We have committed to that profession, and that is who we are. That is our identity. And we don't know how to go anywhere other than that. But then throw in the equation of money, which is we were talking about earlier, teacher pay, and you start to ask yourself, but why have I limited myself to just this one thing? When in my mind, teachers have the perfect DNA to become entrepreneurs. And I cannot tell you how I have seen teachers transform into the business person, because business people, what they lack is the ability to teach. And we have been trained to teach. So why would we not be able to do this whole business side? And it's like this perfect combination of teachers that know how to teach, but they don't feel like they're being salesy or pushy or doing things in a weird way, because it's what we're trained to do. And if you give the gift of having someone learn something, it doesn't seem like you're asking for a lot in return for someone to make a donation to you to help give them even more gifts. And that's what I'm hoping that teachers see, is that we have the perfect DNA to become entrepreneurs, and no one can teach like we do. And that's what we have that no one else has. And I don't know why, and I don't think that I'm the only person that's ever thought this before. I don't know why God has chosen me to be the person that people are coming to. I don't know what the answer to that, but I know that this is my calling. A year ago, I found out that this was what I was born to do. And I'm just excited to live this life out for the next, however many years I've given, so I can help teachers see that.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think when you look at sales should be a net benefit. It should be, I'm trying to, sell you whatever, this pen for, and you want a pen and I want to sell it to you for this price and you want to buy it for this price and we all walk away with what we want. That's essentially what sales is. But it's not always, it's trying to convince them that they need a pen is part of it too. Well, teachers are doing that all day. You should learn this math, or you should know this vocabulary, or you should know this event from history because it will help you. And, having taught in areas where, there are a lot of the classroom did not want to learn, I had to convince them, I had to sell them that this is going to help you. That's sales. And, I have friends who are in business who have theater backgrounds, and that helps because they're entertaining and they can get up there and hold attention. Teachers are that too. So yeah, I agree with you. I feel like the skill set they develop in becoming a quality teacher does align really well with business. And it's just odd that they don't. Maybe it is that we hold ourselves into this box that, Anything outside of that is something that I'm unfamiliar with. I don't want to do. I shouldn't have to do, maybe, is part of it. I think that when we're talking about teacher pay has gone up over the years, obviously, because of unions and the help that they bring and things like that. But, there still is a lot of talk, and I think it's justified that teachers, quote, like, should earn more. We should pay teachers more or value them more in society. I don't know. I guess I don't know if I have a question regarding that, but do you get clients who are kind of angry with the pay that they have, and instead of kind of just commiserating about it with their fellow teachers, just like, I'm going to do something about it? Is that like a typical?
I think that originally when I first started, it was that's kind of where it all came from, is that they were really struggling to make ends meet and that they wanted to find an out. And I became that person, that light that guided them. And now it's shifted a little bit for us. And I've realized that if we focus our attention on the money, that the business doesn't really happen, because it's never about the money. And it's the same concept as it is with teaching. We don't go into becoming a teacher to make money, right? We go into teaching to make a bigger impact. And I'm trying to carry that mindset with my students on, we're going into this online business world not to make more money, but to create a bigger impact. And in return, that money will become like a tool for us that helps us to grow and to become the best versions of ourselves and to who we were supposed to be, which is that teacher on the biggest scale possible. So if you can affect more teachers and they become better teachers, just as I was, those teachers saved me, but they also saved those kids. Research says, and don't quote me on this for accuracy, but a child that is given a poor teacher is almost 2 years behind a child that is given a great teacher for that time period. So what if we could flip the script in education, not only in America, but in the world, and give teachers the gift of, even if you have a bad teacher, if this teacher is purchasing resources or learning from a good teacher, they can learn what it takes to be a better teacher. So we're helping those children get further ahead by helping even more teachers too.
Yeah. I mean, I've told this story maybe before on the podcast, but when I was at Penn State doing, getting my education degree, we had some lecturer come in who was like a superstar teacher, and now he does lecture tours and stuff about education. And one of the kids in my class raised his hand. He goes, "If you're such a great teacher, then why are you here? Why aren't you in the classroom?" He's like, "Well, in a classroom, I get 5 classes of 20 kids. It's 100 kids a year. In here, there's 300 of you, future teachers here. I have access to 300 times 100. The ripple effects are just bigger." And, when you're like, the job of a teacher is, when you said like, don't focus on the money, it's focus on serving. And I think that applies to just business people in general. Your goal should be to serve others. People have pain points and pleasure points, and you try and hit those to try and help them. And like I said, like, it should be a mutual thing. I need help. Well, I can help you. And you kind of meld those two together. And we, as teachers, we are looking to do that. I don't know. I fall into this sometimes myself, where I have a lot of tolerance and a lot of compassion for my students. And then for other adults, I'm like, screw you. Like, I'm not like nearly as kind and generous and patient with adults as I am with students. So maybe some educators need to flip it a little bit in their head. Like, I'm here to serve my fellow teachers as well. And because like you said, and like I'm saying with that other story, like, if you serve other teachers and help them to get better, you're actually serving their students, and your classroom and your reach and your how you are serving is going to get expanded. It's just going to grow and grow and grow. And that's really what we're doing this for, right? I mean, that's what we're doing this. We're not just to serve our, 100 kids a year, but to serve as many as possible. Let's grow. Let's expand our classrooms a little bit and share these resources.
Totally.
Yeah. I've been like stealing goes back a long time when it comes to teachers. Like, when you think about great lessons, or you sit in on a great lesson or something, you go, "Oh, I'm taking that." Like, yeah, like let's take it. That goes back, as far as I can remember teaching. And I think, generations before me, I remember still, I had like push from, I think it was like Susan Poher was her name. And she was like from New York, and she would put her name and the school. It was like Greenlee High School. I still remember this. And I'd download her PowerPoints. And when I first started teaching, I would use her PowerPoints and edit a few things here and there, but I would use her PowerPoint. She like put them all up for free. And I was like, thank you. Just saved me a lot of time. And it's like, I'm remodeling a house, not building a house from scratch. I didn't have to frame it. It was so much better for structuring all my initial PowerPoints and lectures and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But she never got a dime from me, and she probably should have, like I used her services and why not, hit two birds with one stone and serve people and get paid, a little bit more for it. So when it comes to how to kind of dive into this, do you recommend that that teachers listen to business podcasts and business leaders like Gary Vaynerchuk? He puts a ton of stuff out there on social media about building a personal brand and things like that. Do you think the rules apply to education and teachers the same way that they would to other areas of business?
That is the $1 million question. And I truly believe this. And that is exactly how I built my business, was listening to people like Gary Vaynerchuk, like listening to Amy Porterfield, James Wedmore, Pat Flynn. Those were my, in 2013, I started the business, but didn't really evolve into a business until a few years later when I started listening to these people. And during my planning period, I went and I would just put my headphones in and I would go for a walk real quick after I graded my papers. And I would just fuel my life with these people that were business people. And all I could think about is, how can I twist this? How can I put this to teachers and to educators? And what I will say is that knowledge is power. And anyone you can listen to and figure out how you can mold that to who you are is something no one can take away from you. And that's something that I love to teach my students is we're book after book after book after book, because the more you know, the more you can grow, and that part no one can take away from you. But yes, please, by all means, listen to those people and find out how you can put it to your business. But if you're an educator listening, what I've done for you is taken all of those concepts and already put them into the eyes of what it takes to be an educator and to apply them through my podcast and through my courses and things like that, because that was the missing link. That's what no one else was doing, is that there were teachers trying to build a business, but they weren't really building a business. They were just selling their teaching resources online. It was going great without the thought of, how can I grow? How can I scale? And how can I impact more? It was, let's watch it go up. And then once it comes back down, I'm going to freak out for a while and I'll try to figure out how to go. But it's a hustle mentality that a lot of teachers are having to go through right now. And that's the wheel I'm wishing to stop, is how can we work less? How can we make more? And how can we kill the hustle mentality and impact as many children as possible?
Yeah, that gets me to something else that I think is important to discuss with this, which is, I wonder if teachers were, because of like the temperament of teachers, and I'm a little bit like goofy in this area. That's why I'm doing this podcast where it's like, let's hear all sides and stuff. But there is an element of teachers that is, I think, like, just share. Why are you trying to charge me? Aren't we all in this together? A little bit, like, not to like throw out like a buzzword, but like a little bit like socialistic of, we're all in this together. We're all teachers. I should just share my stuff with you for free. And then you share your stuff with me. And let's just be like this, have each other's back type of thing. And this is counter to that, because maybe it's not, but is that something that you have to like address, or have you seen this?
Every single day. I have courses that I sell and things like that. And a lot of times people will come back and say, why would you charge teachers for this?
Right. Come on, just give it to me. All that hard work.
Yeah, right. Why would you charge teachers for this?
Yeah.
And I always respond with, I believe in the 80-20 principle. And I believe that I can give you 80% of what I have. And at the end of the day is when the ask is there. And that's only 20% of everything else, which is, to me, the most valuable 20%. But there is no job in the world, unless you are a volunteer, where you give things away for free. And I don't know where along the line teachers feel like they are the people that are it's the caregiver mentality.
Yeah.
We are caregivers. And as a mom gives to her children, so we should give to others. And I understand that. I'm a mom of 4 boys, but that job is not the same as a job that supports your family. And anything you put time into that helps other people, I believe you should be compensated for it. I do know that there are people out there, and I hear from them all the time, and I just try to share with them, look, if you would like things for free, here is 80% of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You can go get it on the podcast, on the blog, on my YouTube channel, on my Instagram. I will be there for you. And you don't ever have to pay me a dime, and I will never stop giving it to you. And I believe that. But if there's any part of you that wants to take this to another level, I have another 20% that I'm willing to give you. So,
yes, I hear you. I hear that. I hope that people who are thinking that way about you are going to listen to this podcast, because I had a friend who was living in Los Angeles and was moving back to Virginia, I think. And he had a mattress that he was just trying to get rid of. And he's like, hey, put it on Craigslist. Anyone want a mattress? No one wanted it. No one wanted it. Then he said, you know what? I gotta get out of here. I gotta get rid of this mattress somehow. He goes, mattress, barely used, in great condition, $150. Someone came and bought it. It was the same mattress. And I have friends who are personal trainers, and what they found, and this is several different people, is that if they charge more, the person works harder and they get better results. There is something real that if I pay Kayse for your services, I don't want to skip out on that. I'm not going to, you appreciate things you work for. You appreciate things that you pay for. And it's unfortunate because we think I would use it just as much if it was free, but that's not the way it pans out. That is not the psychology. That's just not reality. We think it is, but it's not. You pay for something, you go, oh, well, I'm not going to waste this opportunity because I already paid for it. You have invested, and you've invested in yourself, and investing in yourself is the only thing you can invest in that really you have control over. You can invest in other things. You invest in stock market or something like that. That's all out of your control. But if you invest with your stuff, Kayse, then what people can do is they go, all right, well, I'd put my money in this. I better bust my butt to get some results here. So to try and do good in education, if we're trying to make education better, I'm biased, obviously, because I'm a teacher, but I think that all of the world's problems and the nation's problems could be solved through true education, better education. It's not going to get better unless we really take it seriously. I mean, this mentality of let's just share everything. Let's not be hustlers and a little bit like a business mindset, a growth mindset. Then maybe that's why we're in the situation we are with education. I don't know. I mean, does that seem to line up with what you've seen, people who make that investment?
Totally. And that was the biggest nerve-wracking thing for me back in November of last year was, how am I going to ask teachers for money when they don't have money?
Yeah.
And they don't really know me enough to believe in me, but I know that what I have can change their life. Yeah. So what can I do? Well, I had to fully meditate on and study and believe that the transformation was going to come from the transaction. And if I don't charge for this, there will be no transformation. So if I do, I can guarantee them a transformation in their life that will change the trajectory of their life forever. And when I say I meditated on that every single day, I was 7 months pregnant. I said to myself, this is going to change their life. I cannot feel guilty for asking for money. And, each time my program has grown and grown, now no one asks about the money anymore. And I don't know if it's because now they've gotten to see the ripple effect and the impact, but we have to. I have paid, you would not even believe how much money I have paid in courses and coaches and mentors and all of the things. And every one of them have made me my money tenfold. So if we're willing to invest, that means we're willing to put in the time and the effort that it's going to take to build that business. So I completely 100% agree with you. If we were to give everything away for free, there would be no transformation there.
Yeah. Yeah. And how schools fit into a capitalist system. I'll do podcasts on capitalism. Okay. But it's very difficult to argue that positive changes have come from a capitalist system. Okay. I just have to put it out there. Okay? I'm an economics teacher. It's just the way that it is. Not saying that there aren't negatives, there aren't downsides to every system, but fitting in with regulations, a free market system is how you build innovation and you get better products and things like that. That's just the way that it is. Again, not saying that there aren't negatives to this system, but there are negatives to every economic system. Okay. There are imbalances. There are things that are unequal for sure. Okay, that's my little disclaimer. But how to fit teaching into a capitalist system is a little tricky. And it's kind of like private prisons. Private prisons are kind of now seen as like, this is not good because your customer doesn't have money. Your customer's poor. So how do you get more money if that's the goal in capitalism, is to, you know, raise your revenue and profit, is well, you bring in more people. And then there were controversies about there's a documentary called Kids for Cash, where some judge was basically giving kids who were like vandalizing like 2-year sentences and then getting kickbacks from the private prison companies, and just like cutting funding on food and guard training and stuff like that. And that's why private prisons are just, it's really disgusting what's going on there. Or they're using them for like slave labor and stuff like that. But I don't think that capitalism is necessarily the reason why. I don't think private prisons is necessarily the problem. It's the way it's being applied. Private prisons, here's just an idea to think outside the box. The recidivism rate in American prisons is something like 80%. So you go to prison, there's an 80% chance you're going to come back when you get released. That's horrible. It's obviously not rehabilitating them. So what if you get paid X for X amount of dollars per inmate who has an 80% recidivism rate? But if your recidivism rate for your prison is 60%, you get 2X. If it's 40%, you get 3X. So the government funding would come to you more if you rehabilitate people, you give them trades, you give them, psychiatric treatment and medication or whatever it is. You get them out to be contributing members of society and, and paying taxes and stuff like that. It's an investment in these people. Then, like, what about that system? Like, why are we doing that as a private prison? Why isn't it like, let's make a better prison? Well, how do you make a better anything? What is the goal of a prison? Is it to lock people up and punish them, or is it to rehabilitate them? So you define that, and you can grow that in just a different model. And I think that getting back to teaching, like, there's a lot of, I had Mandy Manning on my podcast, who was the 2017 National Teacher of the Year. And we talked a little bit about how, it's just an antiquated model. Like, so much in education is this industrial revolution model, and we have to change a lot of things. Just changing, like, instead of a blackboard, we have a whiteboard. That's not doing a whole lot. We got to really innovate how schools work and try and figure out, because like you said, like teachers don't have a ton of money, and a lot of the families don't have a ton of money. So to turn this into a free market, system, what would that look like? I don't know. I don't know if we figured this out. Betsy DeVos pushing for, kind of against public schools has not been popular, to say the least. So I don't know what it looks like, but I think that what's wrong with thinking outside the box? Like, is what you're doing, what you're applying, is that something that we could apply on a grander scale, this kind of thinking? I mean, what would that look like at a scale beyond like what you do and what some others do, which is like kind of like a small business? What would this look like on a systemic level?
This is so good. I'm excited about this. Are you here for it? Because I'm ready.
Yeah.
Listening to you chat about prisons, and I'm listening to you talk about, this return and all this.
Sorry, that was a rant. Sorry.
It's okay. I enjoyed it. And I was trying to find the parallel here. I'm like, he's going to ask me about what the parallel is between these two things. Yeah. And right when you started talking, I was like, I know exactly where we're going with this. So I wholeheartedly believe that the one answer to this question is technology. And with technology, any teacher can be anything that their heart desires. And that is what my goal is. At first, with my business, it was, I want to show teachers how to sell their teaching resources online, how to make their mark on other students. That was the purpose of my job. Let me show you how to make your mark. But what I've found is that teachers need more than that. They need to make the shift in their brain that says, I'm not just a teacher. I am whoever I want to be. I just need to become that person. Do you want to sell t-shirts on Etsy and make money that way? Do you want to sell your teaching resources online? Do you want to sell an online course or an online membership? We have to determine what you want in your mind. And then the last part is, let me show you how to make your business. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's a teacher that is running a business either inside or outside of the classroom. And it is using technology to leverage that. And what I am teaching them is how to do it through an online course or an online membership, because there is where the money really is. If you sell a teaching resource online, you sell it for $4.99. The volume play has to be astronomical for you to make a significant amount of money. You have to sell your butt off. And I lived in that life, and I hustled, and I made a great living. But I'm getting old. I'm not getting old yet. I'm only 32, but I feel like I'm getting old. And hustling was not, I have 4 kids. I don't have time to hustle anymore. So I had to figure out what is the way that I can teach teachers how to get beyond just selling their teaching resources online. And what I found was that it's a new way of thinking, and technology has opened up all these doors. And I get to be the answer on, you can teach a course or a membership that is going to provide for so many more teachers, and you're going to make exponential money that way.
Yeah. And I think so you can make money, if you create a course that really helps teachers. I have my own issues with the graduate schools of education, especially at the elite, like Ivy League level. That's a whole different conversation, but I have an issue with what they're actually teaching. But if you have good courses that will truly help, you can, that course, that online course, that could be bought by school districts. It's not just even like a one-to-one thing. I mean, I don't think that funding is the main issue around a lot of schools' problems. I think that it's a lot of bureaucracy. I think there's a lot of overhead. I don't think, I taught at a Bill and Melinda Gates school that had a ton of funding. I mean, we had the coolest technology. It was all over the place, but the bones of the school, the culture of the school was off. It was really off. There are philanthropists. I've talked to John Gamba at University of Pennsylvania, who have money. They want to invest in education. There's a lot of wealthy people in the world, and especially in the country, who want to invest in education, but they don't know what's good and what's bad. If you create something that is truly valuable to teachers, that is truly valuable to schools, there's a market for that. I don't think it's just a money issue. I think there are money issues for sure. There are funding issues in schools, but is that funding, what's causing that? Is there not enough money, or is that money going to the wrong things? And that's a whole maybe different conversation. But if you create something valuable, people will promote it. They'll tell their administrators. The administrators will take a look at it. You get enough teachers behind you. Look what's in Chicago. Teachers unionize formally or informally and say, "Hey, this is going to help us. Can we invest some money in this?" And I think that from my experience, I've taught at 4 different schools, very different schools, at public charter, and private. Whenever the teachers kind of pulled together and really wanted something, that we found a way to make it happen oftentimes. So if you create something that's truly valuable from the time you spend in the classroom and things like that, there's a market out there for it. And I don't know how big it would be, but I do believe that there is, because I think that there is money in education from taxes and from the government, but also from philanthropists. I think there's a lot of people who support education and good education, and you just have to write a lot of grants and things like that, or write letters. But with social media, you can reach out to people, show them this stuff. You get a lot of wealthy people behind it. I think it's there. I think there is a market there. We just have to think a little bit outside the box.
Totally, I agree 100%.
So that's kind of all I was thinking about. I mean, for this conversation, do you, so when it comes to teacher pay, I think that, just to kind of play devil's advocate a little bit, because of the whole cylinder thing, what about the mentality of, my job is important, and I have elements of this, I'm sure you do too, of I should be paid more for what I do. What I'm doing matters. It is important. I am saving lives. I am really making huge impacts on individuals every single day. And if I would have just gone into accounting, I'd make a lot more money. Or, you look at, how much actors and football players and stuff like that get paid. And there's some bitterness of, teachers should get paid more from the government. What is your response to that? And what are your thoughts on this of we shouldn't have to go out and hustle. I hustle enough. I'm grading papers. I'm in here working with these kids who are forgotten in a lot of ways, and I'm working. Why should I have to pick up a side gig when I am doing a really difficult job, my government should just make sure that I am taken care of. My school should just make sure that I'm taken care of. That kind of idea.
I lived in that mentality, and I know a lot of people that still do. I'm from rural, I can't say that word, South Georgia. And so a lot of people live in that I shouldn't have to do these things. And what I say to them is that you're living in the be, do, have mindset, and that is never going to work out for you. Who are you being right now? Well, you're being the person that is saying you should have all these things. And then you're doing the things that are resulting in you not having the things. So you don't have the money because you shouldn't have to do those things. You don't have the happiness because you are living in this other world. But what if you flip the script and stop making the excuses? And instead of going, who am I be, do, have, you start thinking, what could I have right now in the moment and who do I need to be in order to have those things? So like, how can you be the person that you need to be in order to have the things you want to have? It cannot be living in the past. It cannot be thinking you should have all these things, because that's not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to get you where you currently are. So really reach for, who am I being? And I hear, I've had many, many business mentors at this point now. And now that I'm not a teacher, they ask me that question when it comes like on a monetary level. But Kayse, are you being the $10 million a year earner, or are you being the $100,000 a year earner? Because those people make decisions completely different. Are you nitpicking about things that don't matter, or are you building the business of your dreams? It's no different question than to ask the teacher. Are you being the teacher that complains, that wants to, have things change but not do anything about it? Or are you being the teacher that already has built the business? Even though it's not there yet, in your mind it's there, the thought is there, because any thought we have can become a reality as long as we put action behind it.
Yeah. I mean, you're familiar with Carol Dweck, growth mindset, fixed mindset. Oh, you would love it. It's so up your alley. Her book is called Mindset. But I get frustrated with my peeps because I agree with you. We're on the same page with a lot of things, but I have a bit of that entrepreneurial spirit in me. I don't have the stomach for it in a real way. Like my wife makes the money for the family pretty much because the ups and downs of entrepreneurship are just terrifying. But there is an element in me where if I'm not getting what I think I deserve or what I want, I'm going to actively try to, my actions will try and get that. And I get frustrated because there is a level, and this is not a popular thing to say, and you can just stay stone-faced, but there is a level of like entitlement to teachers of, I'm doing this job because, and it's really hard. I shouldn't have to. And like you said, that's not the right mentality to have. And they know that, but it still is, I think, where a lot of the head goes. It becomes bitter. And because it's a hard job, especially when you teach in a lot of like really challenging areas, like the idea of taking on something else, I want to try and urge people in our community, in the teaching community, to look beyond yourself and what you're owed or what you should have, and look at how you can serve more. I have no doubt that there are teachers out there that are serving these kids who are forgotten and are ignored and abused, and you go early and you stay late and you are being a mentor for them. A lot of young men and old men who are there for as male role models. Like, that's so important. It's so important, in fact, that you almost owe it to the world to do more of it. And to grow and to push that value that you bring onto others and make it available to other people. And if you don't, then it's almost like a greedy mindset that only my students get access to my awesomeness. And I think that framing it that way might help. I don't know, but I just want to try and urge teachers to think a little bit beyond themselves. I don't know if that makes sense.
It did. Makes total sense. And I agree with you, is that we're not just talking about one specific kind of teacher. We're not just talking about the new age teacher that just graduated that wants to build a business. Mm-hmm. No, we're talking about the teacher that has been teaching for 20 years, that stays late, like you said, that helps impact children, that's the role model, that's all these things. We're trying to show them that you can help more. And that's what it's all about. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. It's not just the one type of teacher. There are so many different types of teachers that can be impacted by this.
Yeah. I think that's our time. Kayse, like I want you to plug kind of your services and what you do and everything like that. But I also want to try and build some competition because I think that there's, like, I don't know how you've got to, not that I don't know how you got there, but like, I don't know particularly why, and you don't know why necessarily that, you're doing this and others aren't, but you can do it better than Kayse, go do it. And that's something that my wife said to me before. When you build a personal brand, like your brand of teacher, is the cool thing about that is you can do you better than anyone else. And if someone can do like what I'm doing now with Cylinder Radio, and my Instagram is very different than a lot of other Instagrams. It's not very Pinteresty and stuff like that. It gets controversy going. A lot of people don't like me, but if there was someone doing what I'm doing, Cylinder Radio, viewing all perspectives, if they can do it better than me, awesome. I'll just listen to them. Like, I think that one of the things that you can do is, we're all individuals, is you build what you do. And if someone can do what you do better than you, then good. Then just put your trailer on their car and just go along for the ride a little bit. But that's hard to do. So, I encourage educators out there to think outside the box and build your thing and express. If you're good at what you do, then go out and build something big, and let's all work together here while we're all making profit and learning from each other. And I think this is one of the ways that we can transform education. It needs a transformation. School sucks, school sucks. So how can we make school suck a little less? And there's pockets where it doesn't suck at all. So how can we make it better for the students and for the teachers and everything? We have to think in innovative and outside the box ways. And maybe this is the way to do it. I love this. Thank you, Kayse. So where do people find you? How do they see your services other than just, Googling your name?
Yeah, right now, actually, we just released a top secret business map of secrets for just teachers. And you can find it at kaysemorris.com/map. And my name's spelled really weird. Thanks, Mom and Dad. It's KayseMorris.com/map. And I give my top 10 business secrets on how I have broken through to sell, more than just my teaching resources online. And in the coming weeks, we are offering a once a year video series training where I'll be teaching teachers exactly the things we talked about here today. And you can find that and get on the wait list at kaysemorris.com/waitlist. And I agree. I believe that there's only one version of you. Anyone can do what you do, but do they do it like you do it? And I don't come from a competition mindset. I come from a collaboration is key, and there's room for everyone on the playground. So please come to the playground, come join along with us, and let's let teachers conquer the world.
I love that. Awesome. All right, Kayse, thank you for coming on here. Sometimes it's hard for me to get other educators on here because it gets a little tough sometimes, and like past episodes where we're just hashing out issues and things like that. And so I appreciate you coming on here, and I hope educators are listening and start thinking outside the box of like, oh, maybe I could try something like that. Maybe, outside the box thinking is what I'm all about. So,
well, thank you for having me, Will. I appreciate you.
Oh, thank you. This was great. All right. Take care.